What's up, Rink Rats? It's Woody. I'm here to tell you that this week's episode is brought to you by Champion Hockey. If you're looking for quality wheels, sticks, bags, and apparel, then look no further. Champion Hockey has everything you need to look and play like a champion. Check out top-of-the-line Legacy Series sticks and wheels and upgrade your game without breaking the bank. Go to champion.hockey to purchase your gear now, and make sure to check out Champion on Instagram at Champion Hockey to stay updated with products and events. Champion Hockey. Look like a champion. All right, and if you love this show, then you will also love the College Roller Foundation. The College Roller Foundation is a volunteer-run, tax-exempt 501c3 nonprofit organization that exists solely to raise and distribute funds to deserving college roller hockey student athletes in the form of scholarships. The College Roller Foundation isn't a tournament series, league, championship, governing body, or sanctioning agency, but rather works with partners to host events to raise and distribute all those dollar bills to roller players who also like to get their academia on. By raising money through donations and divvying out these scholarships to the players, the College Roller Foundation seeks to grow the game of roller in college. And if you're interested in finding more info, helping out, or donating, please visit www.collegerollerfoundation.com and make sure to follow them on Instagram at College Roller Foundation. College Roller Foundation, growing the roller game one scholarship at a time. It's time to join a revolution in roller with US Roller Cup, a premier roller hockey tournament series. The U.S. Roller Cup is led by a passion for the sport. U.S. Roller Cup is driven to create an unparalleled experience for players, fans, and coaches alike. With a focus on promoting roller hockey at all levels from youth to professional, we are committed to growing the game and fostering a sense of community within the roller hockey world. To find out more information, find tournaments near you, or to sign up for an upcoming tournament, go to www.usrollercup.com. And be sure to follow USRC on Instagram at US Roller Cup. US Roller Cup, a revolution in roller.
No offside. Welcome back for another episode of No Offsides. I'm Dan Dean. This is my partner, Justin Wood. Hey. And this is our special guest. Yeah, I know you did. This is our special guest, Doug Jones, director of Kapolei Inline Hockey Association. How you doing, Doug?
Good, but Dan, I'm going to correct you right off the bat. It's Kapolei. We don't want you getting any hate mail.
Kapolei.
We know people.
My apologies.
We know there's keyboard warriors out there. Nothing better to do. So.
Yeah, so I apologize for that already.
Oh, no apologies. No, nothing necessary. Come on, we're all adults here.
So, and I mean, listen, I'm a teacher, right? So I read lists. I read kids' names.
Yep.
And if you've ever watched the Key and Peele episode of when he reads students' names, and it's it's like
Devontae.
Devontae.
Kayvon.
Yeah, it's just
Dan. I feel your pain because out here in Hawaii, I have trashed and mispronounced. No disrespect to the families and everybody's rich tradition, but I have had such a hard time with pronunciation of children's names. So I feel it. I feel your pain, brother.
It's a daily occurrence.
Yep.
And
it is.
And names are just getting spelled more differently than ever. And I'm like, all right, tell me what your name is. So, but Doug, let me ask you about this.
Sure.
Let me ask you kind of like, because I'm interested in KIHA, right?
Sure.
And so,
absolutely.
I'm kind of, because I'm in a similar situation where I'm on the board for nonprofit of Asheville Hockey League, right? And I run the adult side of the league.
Okay.
And so I'm curious on like what your numbers are for youth and adult. I'm curious on like 1-sheeter, 2-sheeter. So if you be able to tell us kind of a little bit about what KIHA is.
Well, Kapolei Inline Hockey Arenas was formed back in 2010, and the person who put it all together is a gentleman by the name of Richard Pentecost. Richard was a pioneer in the effort to grow hockey here in Hawaii, and one of the things was he had a rich tradition in that Richard was a very generous person who spared no expense in trying to bring as many opportunities to the local Hawaiians to experience the great sport of hockey. We all know you try it, you get hooked, you love it. So Richard had two sons, Michael and Tony, and they would compete on the outdoor rinks. And then they decided, hey, we want to play tournaments like everybody else. We want to get into tournaments. We want to do tournament hockey. Well, they went to the mainland, and they saw they couldn't compete with the mainland teams because everybody had indoor facilities, or everybody had sport court. Everybody had a facility that was geared towards, the development and growth. So the first thing Richard said is, if I'm going to compete with these people, or if I'm going to try and put a program together that is a competitive program, I need to build a facility. So 2010, he built the twin rink Kapolei Inline Hockey Arenas, side by side, 2 rinks, both have sport court flooring. Yep, 200 by 85, full size, state of the art scoreboard. He put everything in there. I mean, it's the Taj Mahal. We just had Etan Shavera out here, came out and did a hockey school with us. Etan was just like, this place is beautiful. He goes, I can't get over how beautiful Kapolei Inline Hockey Arenas are. So Richard put the facility together. By then, both his boys kind of said, I lost the hockey bug. I really don't want to play anymore. So Richard kept his commitment to the people of Hawaii by continuing to have the facility go and grow. His first hockey director out here was Jason Dimitrovic, who's now in Bend, Oregon with the Bend Bullets. And then Jason lasted about a year. After Jason came in Jamie Yoder. Jamie Yoder was here for close to 12 years. And then Jamie decided to move on for some opportunities in Colorado. And then that's when I had the opportunity to fall on me to come out here and run the hockey program. So when you talk to me about numbers, one of the biggest things that we're doing is we're in a rebuilding stage right now. We've got approximately 60 to 70, I would say 60 to 65 kids that are in the in-house, plus another 30 in our Learn to Play and our Learn to Skate program for about 90 kids. And our adults, we're probably about 130 to 140. So we're about 230, 240 total participants here.
Yeah, so you're roughly about our size, because we here in Asheville, we have 3 divisions in adult, 6 teams. We have A, B, and C. A division has 4 teams of 9 skaters and 4 goalies, and then our B and C has B has 9 skaters and a goalie for 6 teams, and then our C division has 10 skaters. We just grew from 10 skaters to from 4 teams to we're gonna have 9 or 10 skaters on 6 teams.
That's great. Good.
Yeah,
Congratulations. It's never easy, is it, Dan, when you're trying to build a hockey program? I mean, you've got to be creative. One of the greatest things was Etan Shavera's out here. He and I had sat down, had some heart-to-heart talks. We decided to combine travel programs. So one of the hardest things in Hawaii, there's a lot of very talented young hockey players, but there isn't enough to put on one team. So you kind of have to beg and borrow from different franchises. So by us shaking hands with Etan and forming a partnership, we're going to be able to send our top 4 or 5 players along with Etan's players and put them together with the Dangle Dojo, which kind of solves our tournament issues. So I was really happy to have that opportunity to sit with him, because Etan and I share the same philosophy. It's like anything else. You throw it against the wall. If it sticks, great, you're going to do it. Yeah. If you try something and it fails, you and I both know you have to go back to the well. You got to be creative. You've got to come back and do something different that you haven't done. It's always about trying to grow and come up with new ideas.
Well, and your members will always tell you, what they believe to kind of what they see, right? And so, it's always interesting on kind of like, because I have my vision, and I'm all about level playing field, like putting the players in the divisions they need to be in, and so mine's all about competitiveness. Where I want where players land in A, B, or C, and so we're if we took our, because we're also you were talking about how Hawaii started with outdoor rinks. We're on an asphalt rink outside.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And so when we go to, we try and bring our youth to tournaments and stuff like that. And it's the same thing. Everyone has an extra step on our kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And even when we go, I mean, we've gotten used to the transition, but it always takes us a game to kind of transition from playing on asphalt and then being like, yeah, I'm not going full speed into the corner because I'm going to wipe out because there's probably dust in there. Whereas when you go into the tile, you can just zip around and you can stop and, turn and do whatever you need to do. So it just takes a little bit for us to get used to it.
Yeah. I mean, there's plus and minus. I guess the best thing is I've always tried to do is the glass always half full. So to me, it's like there's always a positive in something. You're training outdoors. We both know that's going to create more force on you. You're going to work harder to skate. Then you hit a sport car floor, you're going 100 miles an hour because you've really worked so hard on that asphalt surface. So that's one of the big pluses. One of the biggest things out here in Hawaii has just been the simple fact that there's different groups that believe each one has the key to success and how to run a hockey program. And to me, what it's about at the end of the day is, if you set your goals and you put together your program, you have to stick to your rules. I like what you said about competitiveness. Okay, if you've got Jimmy, who's an A-level player, and he's trying to play in the C division because he wants to be with his buddy, no, it doesn't work, because it's going to hurt your league. You have to put him where he belongs. And you know what? That creates hard feelings sometimes, because people, well, I just want to play with my friend. Yeah, but it's not about that. It's about competitiveness. I can't run a league if you're scoring 8 goals a game in the C division when you should be up in the A division. So that's kind of one of the tough issues that we faced here in Hawaii.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is you come into like, hey, you got guys that want to play down, and it's just like, okay,
all the time.
but that doesn't benefit the league. That discourages people from like wanting to play in that division.
Well, it does. Not only that, but it hurts you, because word of mouth is your biggest killer. I mean, we live on an island that's 22 miles wide, so just imagine how quick it spreads. You know, one of the toughest things for us is that when I first got to KIHA, we had the owner had a vision. Richard had a vision. He implanted with me his vision, what he wanted. We had to make some changes that needed to be made. Unfortunately, that meant that we had some people that had to move on. And like anywhere else, they formed their own program. And, that's great. You've got your own program. Prosper. Do what you need to do with your own program while we continue to rebuild ours. And, to me, it's not about who's right or who's wrong. It's about 2 different goals or 2 different visions. Both programs can exist, but they can do it their own way. And I think that sometimes you have to do that. So that's kind of where we are here. And to me, it's about growing the sport. We're in a rebuilding stage. Like I said, one of the things I'm extremely proud about is we started a Wahine program. We have a women's program out here.
Nice.
We had Jessica Kozumi came out. I don't know if you know who Jessica was. She played at the University of Minnesota. She was a Bulldog. She played for Team USA, won a gold medal. Then she played ice hockey for Team USA. She won a gold medal. Jessica came out here. We had like 35 women that came out to her clinics just to be a part of what she did. So right behind me, if you see, that's Pele, the goddess, and we're very proud to have her as our logo for our women's program here, which is growing, and we're extremely proud of all the women that have jumped into the sport with no experience, no fear. They love it.
Yeah, and that's kind of why, one of the reasons why we had Jake Kapitsky on, because one, he's trying to start a new U.S. Roller Cup, but also he's trying to start women. He's trying to encourage more people to buy in on women's roller hockey.
Right.
And starting what's the word I'm looking for?
Women's College Roller Initiative.
Well, the big thing you have to remember right now is you have the Women's Professional Hockey League that just had its debut. They set a record for attendance in Minnesota. They had 13,000 people at the Excel Center show up to watch a game. I mean, I'm a big supporter of women's hockey. I've had the privilege in my life of coaching 3 Olympians. I got to work with Annie Pankowski. She was with Team USA. Shanda Gunn. She was with Team USA. I've also worked with Nicole Dunbar, and I've worked with Laura Vejeranta. They've all been a part of growing into this game, and now they're transferring what they know to other ladies that want to get involved. And you know what it is? A lot of the hockey moms come to the rink and they say, I want to get involved. I want to find a way to become part of the game. Great. Come on out Wednesday nights. We have a Wahine program. We love it, but I've never skated before. It doesn't matter. We're inclusive. We don't care if you've never skated before. We'll take the time to help you. Don't worry about it. We really want you to come and join us. And that's why we've been growing. It's been phenomenal to see the women just jump in and join. So I know Jake will get there. He's got the right mindset. I really liked a lot of what he said about growing the sport, having character, having integrity. Those things are so important when you're running a hockey program.
Absolutely. Now, since we were talking about Jake, I want to get into the RHI, because you did chime in and say that some of the things he said were not necessarily like whether it's the full truth or maybe he was missing some information. So I'm interested to kind of add to his story or kind of change it a little bit.
Well, you had Roller Hockey International. As you know, it started 93-94 season. big part of Roller Hockey International was Dennis Murphy. Now, Dennis Murphy, as you know, started the American Basketball Association, the ABA, which had the famous red, white, and blue basketball, and was known for their cheerleaders, who everybody, during the game on CBS, they'd go to the cheerleaders and everybody would go, wow, that's what the ABA was. So Dennis Murphy was a visionary, way ahead of his time. He started the WHA. The reason the WHA got started is because the NHL, and again, I'm speaking from direct knowledge and contact with Dennis Murphy, had a stranglehold on its star players. In other words, the NHL said, hey, you're Gordie Howe, you're Bobby Hull, you can't make any more than this. And oh, by the way, if you try to go elsewhere, we'll shut you down where you never play the game again. That's kind of how those guys got treated. So all of a sudden the WHA starts, Dennis Murphy's behind it, Bobby Hull signs a $1 million contract to play in the World Hockey Association. Unheard of money. Derek Sanderson signs for $1 million. Bernie Perrant leaves the Flyers to sign for $1 million. All these guys all of a sudden were facing all these zeros that they had never had the opportunity before. Yeah. So Dennis was the visionary with Roller Hockey International, and basically it was this gentleman named Alex Belhumeur, who was a big part from Long Beach, California, of putting the league together. Now, with Roller Hockey International, what it was is franchise owners were responsible to pay a franchise fee, plus they were responsible for their expenses and making sure that the players got paid. The big part of that is that there was a player pool, so if a team won the league, they would split a player pool at the end of the season in addition to what they were being paid. So when Roller Hockey International first started out, you had a conglomerate of teams that were all together trying to make this work. And what people found out very quickly was the attendance numbers just weren't there to support some of the teams. The Toronto Planets, the Calgary team that was out of Calgary Wheels. You had the Edmonton Sled Dogs. All these franchises, Minnesota, they couldn't afford to have a franchise because they weren't making the money, and the owner would have to dig into his pocket. So your first year of RHI, you saw quite a few expansion teams. The next year, I mean, the numbers literally were cut in half. And what the RHI tried to do is they brought a gentleman aboard. You may have heard of him, Ralph Backstrom. He played for the Montreal Canadiens. I actually met Ralph back in the early 70s when he was a New England Whaler growing up in Connecticut. And Ralph was a big part, very talented hockey player. Ralph came aboard as the commissioner. And one of the first things Ralph did was, okay, we need to get the middle-level players. RHI doesn't need to go after top-notch or high-level NHL players. It needs to go after the American Hockey League, the East Coast Hockey League, the International Hockey League players, and give them something to do to stay conditioned during the summer. Then the talks began with the National Hockey League of, hey, would you guys be interested in purchasing the RHI? Would you be interested in putting them in? NHL just had no interest from the get-go in actually doing that. Now, the story was they were dealing with the NHL. No. The NHL really had no interest in becoming a part of Roller Hockey International. So the toughest part of RHI is that the owners were the ones who were feeding themselves. And when you're not bringing in the revenue, you can't support the league. And the ownership of the league wasn't about to dig into their pockets and subsidize these people. So that's where the RHI kind of a great idea. The implementation was put together to try and be successful, but RHI unfortunately wasn't a self-sustaining league.
Yeah, because the whole point about owning a team is making money, right? So,
well, supposedly, the Bullfrogs did very, very well. Anaheim Bullfrogs averaged about their first game they had like 13,000. Well, it was the first event to ever be held at the Arrowhead Pond of Anaheim. 13,000 people showed up, and after that, people just loved it because it was Southern California. You got to remember, if it weren't for Wayne Gretzky, Southern California never would have had the tremendous explosion of inline hockey players that it did, because when he came to the Kings in '88, he revolutionized the state of California for roller hockey. So everybody who'd been playing roller hockey, whether it be on a tennis court, in a parking lot, on an outdoor rink, they were at the Arrowhead Pond that night. Yeah. So 13,000 strong. And then after that, they averaged 8,000 to 9,000. So the Bullfrogs were self-sustaining in Roller Hockey International.
Yeah. What other teams are pretty big at
Well, I think you had the Bullfrogs. I know the Sacramento River Rats did pretty well until they had some ownership issues. The San Diego team that played out of there, they had the Barracudas. They were doing okay, which, the Comrie family owned them, which were huge furniture dealers out of Edmonton or had their own furniture companies. On the East Coast, you had some franchises. You have the Philadelphia Bulldogs. They had a pretty decent. Then you had the Pittsburgh Phantoms, which Howard Baldwin, the former owner of the Hartford Whalers and Pittsburgh Penguins. He was part owner of the Phantoms. So some of those teams did okay. You had the Tritons down in Florida who won the league with Christian Scarina. And there was a funny story about Ski was out that night in a bar. He actually went into a bar with a bunch of the players after they won the league championship. And Mark Messier came into that bar with the Stanley Cup. And they were all there. And it was just like 2 and 2 was not 4, but Messier Cup roller hockey. And it's kind of like, hey, we just won a roller hockey champ. Oh, that's nice. It's like one of those situations. But Christian Scarina, extremely talented hockey player. So you did have some teams that found their place, but it just, again, it wasn't built for long-term or self-sustainment. So you couldn't keep the league going.
Yeah.
What? Who do you think had the best jerseys?
Oh yeah.
That for me is a tough. As you know, Jack White did the initial concept drawings of all the original jerseys that started out in the league. Myself, I would look at some of the jerseys and shake my head. I love the Vancouver Voodoo. Okay, Vancouver Voodoo, I thought was phenomenal. The way they incorporated the logo similar to the Vancouver Canucks, the old style of the red, black, and yellow. And the Voodoo had all those colors it was kind of neon. And then, of course, you had Dave Tiger Williams on the bench. So the Voodoo, to me, was my favorite look as far as a team and a jersey.
Okay, very cool, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at some of them, and I'm like, okay, this is interesting.
Vancouver Voodoo was just, Tiger Williams just, as you know, Dave, 3,000 penalty minutes in the National Hockey League, one of the toughest guys that ever lived. Now he's coaching Roller Hockey International. So what do you think happens when some young kid who's in the American Hockey League comes over to Tiger Williams and yaps him? What do you think Tiger's going to do? Is he going to stay on the bench and take it? No, he goes down to the side of the bench and punches him right in the mouth because that's who Tiger Woods. I mean, that's who he was.
Well, and I guess,
Williams.
Yeah. Well, and it's like I'm looking at here and I'm like, okay, so, you have the Roadrunners that now play pro in the North American circuits, and they kind of kept alive the Roadrunners logo and, different
Montreal.
colors. Yeah. Different colors because Montreal was red and black.
Yep.
But, they kept alive a memory per se, right?
Well, the Montreal Roadrunners, that was created because of Yvon Cormier, who's a Montreal Canadian, very famous hockey player, and they gave him the franchise. So he had some investors behind him, and they wanted him to be the coach, and they called the Roadrunner because that was his nickname when he played. Yvon Cormier was so fast, they called him the Roadrunner because he just down the rink. I mean, he was there and gone. You couldn't catch him.
I actually didn't know that. That's really cool.
I didn't know that either. Yeah. But I'm also seeing here, so KIHA just started up in the Southeast in Atlanta. And so, they have 4 teams. It's different than kind of the KIHA and the other divisions. They did a draft league.
Right.
So, but what actually I just noticed here by looking at all these logos is that one of the teams revitalized the Atlanta Fire Ants.
That was an original Roller Hockey International, and they also played Major League Roller Hockey. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'm like, that's kind of cool. They kind of took back in the roots.
Yeah, I mean, history is such a rich part of what we do with the sport of hockey. There's been so many great people that have played the game, that have coached the game, that have run the game, that have organized the game. To pay tribute to those people, to me, is the greatest thank you can ever give. So I'm extremely proud when I see things like that because it's saying people don't forget their roots. And I always think you should never forget your roots.
Well, and it's nice because now State Wars is for their state teams. They're going back and they're using the RHI jersey schemes.
I saw Timmy McManus had posted the, I've known Timmy, 20 plus years now. So Timmy Timmy, each year he comes up with creative ways to market himself and reinvent his product.
Yeah.
So, God bless him. I think what he's doing is, if he thinks it's going to put kids in jerseys, that's great. Good for him.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I kind of want to touch on, kind of the history of like where you've been and what you've done for hockey.
I mean, there's so much that I've done. I've always been one of those people that I just want to say, if there's an opportunity, I've always tried to take it. And one of the big things I've learned is that I've made mistakes in the industry, but I've also learned from mistakes. One of the biggest things is, if you make a mistake, you've got to learn, you've got to grow from it. Everywhere I've been, I've had very good success. I sometimes have harsh critics or people that are very harsh with me and say that I don't know what I'm doing or what I'm capable of. But everywhere I've been, I've had very good success. From the Wayne Gretzky roller hockey centers, when I managed all 6 facilities, to a record number of 15,000 members. We were at our peak. We grew. It was phenomenal. We had so many people playing hockey, and the buck stopped with me. I was handling all those things. So what I always try to tell people is, regardless of what opinion is, you have to look at the whole history and get a good idea of what has worked and what hasn't worked. And like I said, some things are going to work, some things aren't going to work. But the thing is, the experience makes it easy. Just like when you run the rink in Asheville, you've been around, so you know what proactive is versus reactive. Yeah. So if you've got little Timmy out there who's got the tomahawk, and he uses it a lot. I think one of the biggest things is, when you see Timmy raise his tomahawk, there could be a problem. You become proactive. So with me, I've got like 35 plus years in the industry. I've done it all. You name it, I've done it. From being a hockey director to a player to a referee within RHI for 2 years, to being able to be a part of an RHI franchise, to the commissioner of Major League Roller Hockey when we had such a growth spurt in the U.S. and then we expanded to Europe and we were extremely successful over there. There was just so many things that I've been involved with, and I always thank the opportunities that I've had, because even if maybe they didn't go like they should have, I learned a lot from being involved with everything. So
I definitely understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you played.
Yes.
How old were you when you started playing?
Well, I mean, my career I basically moved to California in 1990, and I played for a team called the LA Jets. They were in the what became the Western Pro Hockey League. So I was playing out there, and actually what was funny is Rick Chartraw, who has won, I think, 5 Stanley Cups, was my defensive partner on that team for a couple games. So I stepped onto the rink, and all of a sudden I see Rick Chartraw out there, and I'm like, oh, my God. I didn't even know what to say. But playing out here in California, I moved out here with my wife at the time, and we moved. When we did, I started, like I said, beginning my career in Western Pro Hockey League, played there for 2 years, and I played with the Orange County Outlaws. And then that's when roller hockey hit, the big boom.
Yeah.
So I got caught right up in the big boom. Chris McSorley came out. He ran the Anaheim Bullfrog tryouts. I had a torn ACL. I was done. All of a sudden, Chris took all the people that were local out here, and he cut them all, and he brought in all his ice players from the East Coast Hockey League that had played for him at the Winston-Salem Thunderbirds. So all these guys who would never play roller came out here to all of a sudden begin playing roller hockey. And because I had somewhat of a background in management, because I'd been in the Hartford Whaler organization, the great thing was that I immediately began doing hockey director work. So I was at Ice Chalet. We had 700 people in that program. Then I went to Stuart Silver, who was one of the owners of the Anaheim Bullfrogs. We were full. That program was, we had so many people. We were legitimately on the weekends running 18-hour days on a Saturday and Sunday. So everything was very busy. So I was involved in the management aspect of that, and then just continued there to grow with different opportunities. When the Gretzky opportunity came to me in 97, I jumped at it, and I was with them for 7 years, the entire time that the Gretzky centers were open. And like I said, 15,000 members. Irvine alone had a population or a membership of 3,100. So I was also working for the Anaheim Ducks during that time, and game nights only for the coaches. So like I said, I had my hat in so many different or I was dipping my pen into so many different ink fountains that I was always involved, and I always took the opportunities. When the Ducks went to the first Stanley Cup final, 2002, 2003, I was with the team. I was there for Game 7 in New Jersey, where they lost 3-0. I was there the night Paul Kariya took that thunderous hit from Scott Stevens and then got up and scored one of the most incredible goals that I'd ever seen in my life. He went out there and ripped it over Brodeur, and the place, I've never heard the pond so loud as I did that night. So I was, how can I say the word? I was blessed to have all these opportunities. But one of the nice things is, if you do a good job, if you keep your mouth shut, the door is always open. So it creates opportunities for you to go anywhere you want and to do different things that you may want to try and do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, I got to say it, go Devils.
Watch Jeff Friesen, right? Jeff Friesen was a duck killer, and then the next year, Jeff Friesen's playing for the Ducks. So,
yeah.
You know,
and then you have Niedermeyer that's like, oh yeah, my time here, and I want to go play with my brother. So he goes to Anaheim to play with Rob Niedermeyer.
Nicest guy ever. I met Scott. I'll tell you what. I had so much respect for him as a hockey player because he wasn't a loud locker room guy. He led by his play, and when he was on the ice, he was so serious, and he took everything to heart that you can't not help but want to be better just because he's around you. I mean, Scott Niedermeyer is just an incredible hockey player. He was. And I don't think I've ever seen a defenseman combine the passion that he had. Plus, you know, if he had to drop the gloves, he dropped the gloves. I remember with Detroit, he dropped the gloves and chased one of the Red Wings around one night. It just, I mean, the guy was just, he's proverbial a champion. I mean, he was built the right way. He was a prototype. You don't see many athletes like that. Never complained, never whined about how things were. He challenged everybody to get better.
Yeah, and you know, probably in his time, one of the few, probably one of the best two-way defensemen.
Oh, absolutely. Offensive, defensively. I mean, Scott Niedermayer's on a 2-on-1. I don't think you have to worry when he's playing a 2-on-1. Yeah. Scott Niedermayer's the third man in on an odd man rush. Who do you think the drop pass is going to go to?
Yeah.
I just little simple things like that. As you get acclimated with the game, like one of the great things for me was working with the Ducks coaching staff and being in the press box all the time. I mean, I would watch practices and I'd watch the game, and there it is. They worked on that play. They're going to the go-to. There's Chris Pronger in the high slot. Bang. Boom, goal. Because Chris Pronger never missed from the high slot. So it was just, that's the way things were set up. But you really get an appreciation for who the go-to guys were when you're watching a team at that level and seeing how they operate and the things that they do.
So a lot of the pictures that you sent us was you refereeing, right?
Yeah.
And so,
absolutely.
And so, like, what extent did your refereeing kind of go to, right?
Well, I mean, in California, there's so many talented officials. I just want to say right now, I didn't get into it late in life, but, you know, in 1990, I was approximately, I'd say, 36 years old, you know, so I'm reffing. I had ref before, but, you know, there's a lot younger, hungrier guys that I worked with. Justin St. Pierre, who I worked with in Roller Hockey International. Justin came on as an 18-year-old rookie. As you know, he's been a stalwart in the National Hockey League. He's a referee, does 20, that number's incorrect. Does maybe 40 games a year in the National Hockey League now. But Justin started out originally in Roller Hockey International, and that was all through the guidance and auspice of Michel Voyer, who was really a big name out in Southern California, who recruited referees. Michel gave me my first start in Roller Hockey International as a linesman. And one of the things about Roller Hockey International was they had the offside rule, which a lot of people had a hard time with because you could carry the puck over the red line, and it didn't matter if your teammates were in the zone already as long as you carried it over. However, if you passed the puck from behind the red line to a teammate over the red line, they were offside. But if a defensive player or the puck hit somebody on the opposing team, then those players would automatically be onside. And probably for the first 6 weeks of the season, I know everybody struggled with it because players just, you know, they were so used to making that pass. So they would just take the step, cut around the net, boom, zing, there go the puck, whoop, offside. Then you get the, what are you blowing the whistle for? What the hell? Try to explain it to them, you know? So it just, that was part of the game where the players trying to learn to understand how RHI worked. And then, of course, the icing was the same thing. You dump it in behind the red line, it's an automatic icing. So
yeah,
for me, working 2 years there, I think I did about 11 or 12 games, and most of them were at the Bullfrogs. Well, they all were at the Anaheim Bullfrog home rink, which was the Arrowhead Pond of Anaheim. So I got to work there, and again, that place was packed. So you'd go out there and there'd be 8,000 or 9,000 people in the building. And it was always just, fun to do the games because those people really got into watching the Bullfrogs play.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, I was just curious because, like I said, you sent us a bunch of pictures. So I wanted to kind of dive into what how far did you take refereeing, so.
Well, I tried to take it as far as I could. And obviously my age being 36 at the time, it works against you, but, I had refereed amateur hockey, and then I got to do AAA games. I did some high school, did college. Well, I did college, quite a bit of college, when it was first growing in Southern California. And then obviously the opportunities there were just not as abundant for me because a lot of the younger kids that I would see would come through the system were young, hungry referees that really wanted to make it. And I know several of them now work in the American Hockey League, which is great for them. But there's always great stories. And I mean, in Roller Hockey International, one of my favorite stories that I love to tell everybody is Darren Langdon. Darren Langdon came from Newfoundland. He's from the island, Prince Edward. If you know PEI, it's Grant Saunier, who's with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He was originally a coach of the Bullfrogs. He came from there. Shane Arsenal, he's from the island. But Langer was playing for the Anaheim Bullfrogs, and we were doing a game against the Las Vegas Flash one night, and I was the linesman, and what happened was one of the Flash players had no idea who Darren Langdon was. Now, Langdon is 6'2", he's maybe 210. The guy, not an ounce of fat on him. He's built like a brick shithouse. I mean, the guy is proverbially, I mean, he's a brick wall.
Yeah.
So this guy tried to get tough with Darren and rough him up. So Langer speared him and dropped him. And, the guy goes down like he got shot by a missile, laying on the floor. And one of the referees, his name was Joe Maskowitz, calls the penalty. So we're gathering, and I'm standing by Langer. And Langer's, wishing the guy a happy birthday and hoping he's having a Merry Christmas, and he's talking to the player while he's down and asking him if he wants him to go get his mom, so to make things better. And just standing there, and Maskowitz goes, I'm sending him to the showers. He speared him. So I kind of said, well, hey, this is what I saw. He kind of tried to slew foot Langer, and Langer just retaliated. So he goes, well, no, I'm sending him to the showers. So he looks at Langer, he points at him, he goes, you're out of here. And all of a sudden, Langer's eyes rolled up in his head. I just saw the whites of his eyes. And he said, what the? I mean, he said, what? Went right after Maskowitz. I mean, like a bull on the loose. And here I am. I'm 6'1". I think I was like 225. I step in front of Langer, and I knew I had to stop him because I can't let him hit the ref. So I put myself in front of Langer, and he hits me, and I was like, okay, I'm in for a while. I thought I was fishing. I thought I was trying to pull a 600-pound marlin in. So I got Langer by the pants, and I'm talking to him so he can see me, and I'm saying, Darren, we got to go. I got you. And he's like, Merry Christmas, Happy Birthday. But this guy just. So I mean, I'm literally trying to drag him off the rink. Now, come on, this guy is, like I said, he's so. I mean, he's strong. I'm trying to get him off, but I'm not trying to go over the line because if I piss him off, he can clock me. And then all of a sudden now I got a problem. So I finally get him to the bench door. And as I get him to the bench door, I make a stupid mistake of putting my hand right by the door. So he goes off and he turns around and he goes, Happy birthday, Merry Christmas. And he slams the door, and I barely got my hand out. So my index finger gets caught in the door. He snaps my index finger, completely broke. Broke my index finger right at the joint. And the trainer was a gentleman by the name of Chip Ryder, who was the Bullfrogs trainer. He looks right at me. He goes, are you all right? And I go, no, I'm not all right. I go, I can't feel my finger. And all of a sudden, my finger's turning purple and blue. And as we're looking at it, my finger starts to blow up. And he goes, Jonesy, we got to tape you up. So they get a splint out of the box, and he tapes me up, and I finish the game. 2 days later, I see Darren at the practice facility, which was the Stewart's Roller World in Fullerton, California, where the Bullfrogs practice. I see Liner. So I walk in and he sees me. He just looks at me and he goes, sorry. And he just walks right by. And it was just like, he knew me, he knew who I was, and he felt bad, but that was as far as he could take it. So he gave me the sorry. So I was just, oh man, I mean, just one of those experiences. The other thing was RHI would do what they call an open tryout. So they would hold them in California, and it would be at Stewart's Roller World. So I come on the rink because myself and the gentleman named Greg Lucker were the local officials in SoCal. So we get a call, hey, come on, Stewart's Roller World, we need you guys to ref. We'll pay you guys, $250 a day. You just come on out and just ref scrimmages. So I come out there, and all these guys are coming out RHI wannabes. They want to try out for RHI teams. And I'm looking around. Half these guys couldn't even defend themselves. They couldn't stand up on their skates. Like one guy came out with like the Fisher-Price skates on.
Nice.
And yeah, well, first thing I did is get off the rink. You're not. Who are you? You don't tell me where I can skate. Do you know who I am? No, I don't, and I don't care. Get off the rink. So it's like, just those situations. So Ralph Backstrom's there. So I look at Ralph and I'm like, are you kidding me? He goes, oh my God. He goes, I can't believe it. He goes, we're going to break this into two groups. So they break it into two groups. They have an A group and a B group. Now the A group had some talent. So Warren Young is there, who played for the Pittsburgh Penguins. He was gained notoriety for being a 40-year-old rookie who played with Mario Lemieux. And his rookie season, he scored 40 goals as a 40-year-old.
Dang.
So he's there for Howard Baldwin. So I had worked for Howard Baldwin with the Hartford Whalers. So Darren and I were sharing stories, Warren and I, about Howard Baldwin and what it's like being with him in Pittsburgh. So anyway, we're looking at the A group, and he looks at me. He goes, "Wow, nobody can play." It's like there's nobody out. There's no gamers out here at all. So I said, "Yeah, our job's just to ref and drop the puck." The B group comes out. Okay, unfortunately, the B group just wasn't. It was like playtime. So these guys are all out there. No fighting, nothing. These guys are all trying to play hockey. Well, Mike Butters, who was the Anaheim Bullfrogs policeman, he was the guy that set you straight when you tried to rough up one of the talented Bullfrogs, was out there helping with the scrimmages, and he's talking to me, and Butsy and I are sharing some laughs. They had a news channel. It was called Orange County News Channel, and News Channel came out and did a story. There's 100 people there for the Roller Hockey International tryouts. Butters gets on TV, and they interview me. He goes, "You know what? Nobody's fighting out here. Nobody's trying to win a job. Nobody's doing anything. Nobody's doing what it takes to try and get to the next level." So we had day two. I show up for day two. We drop the puck. All four guys just drop the mitts and square off. All of a sudden, every time we line up for a face-off, two guys are going.
Nice.
Guys are fighting. And these guys don't know how to fight. So they're trying to throw punches. And, I mean, it's just like, I look at my partner, I said, let them hit the floor before we do anything. Let them exhaust themselves. I'm not going to try and break up a melee unless somebody's really taking advantage of somebody and doing it. Okay, so the A group, we get done with that. Now the B group comes out. Oh, my gosh. We had one guy try to kick a guy. Oh. We had another guy was like a black belt. So he was doing like judo strikes, trying to hit. I mean, I never saw anything like it in my life. And I looked at Ralph and I said, "So what do you think?" And he goes, "Well, there's maybe 3 guys out of 100 that could actually play on a Roller Hockey International team." And I think 2 of them ended up going to Pittsburgh. And I think one of them went to St. Louis with the Vipers.
Okay.
So that's basically what happened. But I'll never forget that experience. Day 1, everybody was, day 2, melee. It was like Greg Lucker and I, all we did was, let the bodies hit the floor.
Yeah.
I picked one guy up by his pants. I mean, it was insane what was going on out there.
Wow. Yeah, that's a wild story for sure.
just good times.
I don't think we've ever seen it.
No?
I haven't seen that in our leagues, at least.
No. So the guys in our league that come in, we got a lot of transplants.
Yeah.
And we got guys that from like New York and stuff like that, and they're just like, "This is the nicest league we've ever played in."
Oh, that's great.
Well, yeah, it's awesome because so we have A division, and if you compare our A division to even because let's just say the Northeast, it doesn't compare, right? But it's an A division, it's competitive. And so, but then we have our B division, which is the over competitive league. And so we joke around and we say, the B league's the bitching league because it's a bunch of guys that sit there and will complain like, why didn't I get this call? He tripped me, or I'm like, no, like you guys peeled off and hooked feet and fell. Like you want me to call a penalty on both of you? Like, no, I'm not going to call a penalty on both of you. Right. And so, it's just a lot of passion, and it's guys who think they know roller hockey rules. But the thing we come into in our area is that guys don't know what incidental contact is, and they don't know what, the parameters around what is okay in incidental contact and what is not okay. Right.
Sure.
So you get into guys that are just like full on body, shoulder to shoulder, then take the puck. It's like, no. It coincides with one another. It's right. As you're taking the puck, you can then make contact and rub them out. Yep. But, and then those guys that like are faster and come in and cut in and take the puck, and then, the guy gets tripped up. He's like, what the heck? It's interference. Like, no, he's got the puck. So.
For me, at the Gretzky Centers, I trained the referees. Sol was in charge. I would go to each center and make sure the referees had referee clinics. They were all trained. One of the big things about that is just the amount of time you have to put in to teach the game. Some people get it. Some people understand that if you two collide with each other and you're staring at I see Dan staring at Justin, I know there may be a problem. I'm going to look at Dan and say, Dan, knock it off before it even starts, because that's just instinct. You can't teach that with people. So one of the big things for me was in refereeing as much as I did. I did Narch. I did KIHA Cup, which was originally started by Paul Chapey, the original owner of Narch. And I worked for him. I would do his tournaments. And then I would do KIHA Cup. And then I did Pacific Cup. Then I did, when they started up they had that league there, the West Coast Inline League. I was a referee. I did so many games there. I refed at Irvine for a number of years. I did 3,500 games at Irvine. We had like a little celebration after I did my 35th. It was just, great experiences. But probably the most fun I ever had was, in the RHI, watching a lot of what went on, because it was just, you couldn't write a better story than some of the things that went on with the players that were out there. They all had a passion. Then they had the Pro Inline League that played out of the Anaheim Convention Center. And that had 6 teams. And the Anaheim Bullfrogs were resurrected, and they played in that league. And one of the great things about that league was the amount of amazing talent. There were kids that played out there. Etan Shavera was out there. You had Christian Scarina, who, again, Dave Cairns. You had guys... just so many different players that had these sick skills that, I'd look at what they do with the puck and just shake my head that these guys were able to do all that. And at the convention center, they were getting like 2,000 people, maybe 3,000 people. And I was playing with the South County Bulls. And at the time the league folded, we were in first place. We had a really good team. We had a very strong team. And unfortunately, it's just like anything else. I think Paul Chapey said it best the other day. I was reading a comment of his on Facebook. He goes, people, when they try to start pro leagues in inline hockey, while he respects the opportunity and he respects them trying to do it, Narch and State Wars have pro divisions that feed it. Narch and State Wars do such a great job with their pro divisions. You don't need to start another pro division. You can go to Narch and play pro and play against the best athletes in the world. You can go to State Wars, play in the Palma Pro Invitational. You play against the best athletes in the world. There's no need to try and do a pro league. When I was the commissioner for MLRH, I hooked up with Bill Rowie. Bill Rowie talked to me. First thing we wanted to do was expand. So we had a Southern division. We had an East Coast division. We had a Michigan division. We had a division in Texas. We had a division in California. And then we had a Western division, which was Michigan and Chicago. And we grew so fast that at the end of our first year, I was literally traveling every weekend to a different location to host the events. And one of the big things I noticed is that the same players that were playing MLRH were playing Narch and they were playing State Wars. So I was kind of like, we're kind of eating ourselves alive here because we're using the same people over and over again. And I know Narch and State Wars aren't going to go out of business. They're always going to be what they are because they have the best product out on the market.
You got the 3 major tournaments towards Narch and State Wars. They've been around for over 20 years now, at least.
Yeah.
Nobody
does it better.
Yeah, and so they have the model, and the model works, and people continue coming out because they put the product out there. you know.
And they absolutely do. And that's where we expanded to Europe. And how we expanded Europe was a gentleman named Bob Sullivan, who passed away, unfortunately, to cancer about 4 or 5 years ago. I knew Sully from the Hartford Whaler days. He was a player. And I used to skate with the Whalers like in off season, and it was always a great time. I like Gordie Howe and just – oh, my God. Gordie Howe was timeless. The guy never aged. I mean, he looked like he aged, but he could still shoot the puck like an 18-year-old. I've never seen a guy with a harder shot in my life. But Sully was in Germany, and we decided, all right, well, let's try and do a tournament out in Germany. Let's do MLRH Europe. Went out to Europe. We had a huge success. Next thing I know, we have a European division. So traveling every weekend in the States, and then every 2 months I'm going out to Europe to spearhead MLRH Europe. And we got to the point where as we kept growing, we were a full check league that allowed fighting.
Nice.
What I started to see was the finesse and skilled players did not want to play full check. They did not want to have fighting because a lot of them went to 9-to-5 jobs on Monday. Yeah. And when they went to NARCH, Tours, or State Wars, they didn't have that. So they said you need to change the league to non-fighting and get rid of the checking. And at that point, the owner and I, Bill Rowie, had sat down and looking at what we were doing. I mean, we had accomplished pretty much all we could. I was there for 8 years with him. So I was doing that. I was, again, I had my hand in so many different hats, doing that with Bill, traveling, taking care of all that. Then in South Carolina, we had the Pirates. We were a part of KIHA, so we were playing there, and then we were part of MLRH. So you had all these things going on. It got to the point where there was just no opportunity for growth. And that's where I really, again, tip my hat to NARCH, State Wars, and Tours, because their pro divisions are done the right way. And those athletes are the best athletes you can see anywhere. Look at Travis No.
Yeah.
The guy's sick. Travis No is probably the best. And here's a great story about Travis No. We're in Las Vegas for the hockey show. And they had what they called the Super Deker. The Super Deker is like simulated ice, and there's lights under the ice. And wherever the light goes, you have to put the puck. So there were like 4 or 5 different NHL players who I will not name. 2 of them were Stanley Cup champions. They went out there. They tried to do the Super Deker. Okay, so one of them was like, oh, fuck this. I'm not doing this. It's bullshit. And, he walks away. He doesn't want to do it, right? Travis No gets on the board. I've never in my life, ding, 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 bing, 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 bing. It's like a slot machine. It pays, The guy goes, Travis, you just beat the Super Deker. And I looked at Travis No. I said, you know what? You're the only guy today that's beaten the Super Deker. Travis No beat all these NHL players with the Super Deker. And I'm not trying to take anything away from anybody else, but that's who Travis is.
Yeah.
Travis is the premier athlete, I think, right now. He's a role model. He's a guy that, he doesn't get in trouble. He doesn't lead a lifestyle that, you're reading about or hearing things about it. He's just good for the game of roller hockey because of what he does and his work ethic. And I was really happy for him. So every time I see Travis now, I say, hey, remember the Super Deker in Vegas? And he smiles because it was such a great moment when he beat that. It just, like I said, you had to be there to see it. All these guys were getting so frustrated, like ready to break the stick over the knee. Here comes Travis No. Ding, 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 ding. It was just unbelievable to watch him do it.
Yeah.
Well,
awesome.
You know how you were saying that there's a lot of players who didn't want the contact and the fighting. Right.
Absolutely.
Did you notice a degradation in that kind of finesse while having the hitting?
Well, here's the big problem with the hitting aspect of the game. You had guys that were ice hockey trained that knew how to hit, and you and I both know when you're hitting somebody, you're separating them from the puck to gain possession and basically to shake things up. Or you're hitting somebody to shake things up to get your team rallied. You're looking for that. Some guys out there were taking 5 strides just trying to hit somebody. And that's not what it's for. And I remember watching some games early on where some of the teams that were inexperienced, there would be a defenseman that would jump in, take 5 strides just to hit a forward that was going to get a breakout pass, and the forward would let the puck go right by him. So the puck would go, and there'd be a 2-on-1 the other way, and then the defenseman would go to finish his hit, and the forward would put the stick up and clean his clock. And I'd be like, okay, some guys don't understand what the purpose was. So I had a lot of the players come up to me and say, I'm not comfortable with this hitting because a lot of people aren't using it properly in the game, and I don't want to get hurt. Respectfully so. Understandable. It's a tough element when you wanted it. But Bill Rowie, the owner, he wanted to continue to have hitting in roller hockey. I mean, Major League roller hockey. So
I've never met anyone besides the people I play with. In my youth league, in the 90s when I was playing roller hockey, it was full equipment, full check. And so it was outdoors on asphalt. It was wooden boards with chain link on top of it. And so we had it like separated where it was 5 and 6 year olds were on a line. So every team would have 5 or 6 year olds. They'd go out, they'd play. Then they would change lines to the 7 year olds, then the 8 year olds, then the 9 year olds.
Right.
And so you'd play against your own age group, but we were all the check people.
Yeah.
So it's I've never come across anyone else in their childhood that besides the guys that I've played with that have played in some sort of roller league like that. And honestly, it's my first time where I was able to like hit someone. And then that's when I left roller hockey for a little bit because ice hockey started coming pretty big, right?
Right.
And so then, I was like, oh, I could hit in ice hockey too. So,
but Major League Roller Hockey was a spin-off of Roller Hockey International.
Yeah.
Roller Hockey International lost $40 million in 1997, and that was it. They were done. They shut the doors on the operation. MLRH came in. Bill Rowie put about $1 million into it. Some of the teams weren't prepared for the level of play because you had such a difference between your high-level players and then your bottom of the food chain, and there were some guys that just didn't belong in the league. And that's where, when I came in to help Bill, it was trying to get more of an evening out and getting these tournament players who I knew were able to get the job done. But, MLRH served its purpose while it was there. It's been defunct ever since, I think about 2013 or 14. It's been quiet. It hasn't done anything. So it just, it served its purpose when we did that. But when we talk a little bit about roller hockey expansion in California, again, there has to be the nod to Wayne Gretzky for what he did. 1988, he became part of the Los Angeles Kings. Within a year, the amount of people that started wearing rollerblades and skating on tennis courts and parking lots and an outdoor rink that was in Garden Grove. And all these kids started strapping on skates because they wanted to be like Wayne Gretzky. Yeah. I mean, he revolutionized the sport. He just absolutely brought such a new growth. I'm talking new people who were not traditional ice players, who hadn't played the game. He was so responsible. I don't understand why there's not a statue of him, down. Well, there is one outside of the Crypto Center. Yeah. But for what he did for hockey and what he did for Los Angeles and everywhere else, and the guy's an ambassador. I mean, every time somebody talks about Wayne Gretzky, I've never ever heard a bad story, bad experience. My encounters with him, he's always very, very pleasant, very kind, very cordial. He would ask questions. He wouldn't just ask like, "Hey, how you doing today?" He would just say, "Hey, how are things going? How are things at the rink? How do you like it? What's one of the best parts of doing this job? Working with the kids." "Oh, I agree. I love kids." His boys. He had 2 boys, Ty and Trevor. They had their birthday party at the Irvine Gretzky Center one day, so the whole family came in. We shut down the rink, and they skated, and he was there. He puts on a pair of wheels, and he's like doing spinoramas and out there with his kids, and everybody's laughing, having a good time. I'm just like, the guy, you could see how much he loved hockey. There was a love for what he did, and that's why we were so lucky. I was so lucky to be with that company for 7 years because the amount of growth that we experienced, like I said, 15,000 people were playing at 6 centers. That's incredible. I don't think you'll ever see numbers like that again, as far as, inline hockey goes and hockey programs being run. But that for me was such a great opportunity in growth as a manager and in running a hockey facility, because you understand how important your rules are. If you put something in black and white, you have to follow it. Yeah. You can't change the rules just because Timmy doesn't like the rule, but Jimmy does. No, because that's where you start hurting your hockey program. Unfortunately, when it comes to rules, not everybody agrees. Yeah. People may not understand, but if you stick to it, at least you're consistent.
Now, the last body of roller hockey that I got as a child, got to kind of watch, was the beach tournaments.
Oh, yeah, Pro Beach.
Yeah.
I wasn't involved in Pro Beach. I can tell you that at the time I was at the Gretzky Center, and Chris McSorley had gotten in touch because he was part of Pro Beach Hockey, and he asked if we had any players over there who could play in the league. And at this time, I think it was 1999, right about 99 or so. So I said, sure, let me see if I can help you out. Let me see if I can find some guys. So like Berkeley Hoagland, James Jensen, traditional names. James Jensen was a goalie for the St. Louis Vipers in the RHI, won a league championship in '97. Just trying to throw names out there and go. So Rick Hutchinson, who was a hockey director at Disney Ice at the time, just trying to throw these guys out there. And I talked to Hutchie. I go, hey, so how was it? How was the PBH? He goes, well, they got 2 ramps out there. They put us in a pair of skates, Jonesy, and the wheels are inverted. So your front wheel is to the left, your second wheel is to the right, your third wheel is to the left.
Yep.
He goes, and guess what? When you try to skate forward, you go backwards. He goes, so it's like the hardest thing I've ever done. So some of these guys were just really struggling with the concept, but they wanted to make it be successful. So as you know, ESPN had the contract. ESPN also had Roller Hockey International's contract, which when we talk about Jake a little bit, Jake talking about ESPN, what happened with Roller Hockey International was simply that RHI's ratings weren't that good with ESPN. Yeah. So they were on ESPN2. And then ESPN2 decided to put it on ESPN3, which you and I basically know that was a streaming league. So you're pretty much watching things streaming. Same thing with PBH. They put Pro Beach Hockey onto ESPN, hoping that would be a ratings bonanza. Chris Madsen, who was the Anaheim Ducks play-by-play guy, came out working with another man, and they signed a 2-year deal, and they were out there, and they were part of what they were doing. But again, Dave McLean, who do you ever hear of the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling?
Yes. Isn't there a isn't there like a maybe a series on them or something like that?
Well, it's a series that isn't true, but the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling actually occurred in the 90s. It was an actual TV show run by David McLean, who was the same guy who pioneered Pro Beach Hockey. Hey, let's do something on the beach. Let's put some ramps out there. Let's add some live rock bands, and let's make this thing a day-long fiesta. Yeah. So Dave McLean put this together. Now, here's the problem. And again, I'm not knocking Dave McLean. Dave McLean's an idea man. He is not a financier. So here's your problem again. You've got a great concept, good idea, but you don't have the dollars to keep the league going. So the league starts, I believe they had 6 teams. I watched a couple games. Michel Voyer was the head referee, got some of the refs out there that were working. I wasn't a part of it. But one of the funniest stories that happened, there's a gentleman who I'm not going to name for the sake of not naming him because I don't think it would be appropriate, who was a goaltender. And when I was working for the Anaheim Ducks, we would have skates with the players who were injured or players who were cut, and I'd skate with them and we'd zip around and this guy would play goalie. And, obviously the players, they were happy he was there. But anyway, somehow he got himself out to Pro Beach Hockey. So he goes out there and he plays a game in PBH. Chris McSorley's talking to me, and he goes, do you know this guy? I said, Chris, I'd rather not say anything. So Chris goes, okay. So the guy goes out, he gets lit up, just lit up. Chris goes, you're done. I don't want to see you again. Go. Because I guess the guy gave him the story that he played junior A here, junior B. This is the usual stuff you always hear. People always kind of add a little salsa to what they've done, which, by the way, was a PBH team. Anyway, long story short, McSorley says, don't come back. Well, this guy invited his whole family, and they were coming down from San Jose the next day. So he tells Chris Madsen, who was a friend of mine at the time, I can't. My family's coming tomorrow. They're expecting to see me play. I gotta play. I gotta be there. So the games don't start the next day at like 9 a.m. He's there at 7 a.m., full gear, sitting in the tent. McSorley walks in. He goes, what are you doing here? I thought I told you to eat shit. Go, leave. He goes, I got to play. My family's coming in. I got to play. I got to be there. So McSorley goes out. He's all frustrated because, the guy didn't respect what he said. McSorley talks to Chris Madsen. Chris Madsen puts a spin on it. He goes, hey, this will make great TV. He either wins the game or he's out. He's done. He can't play PBH ever again. Nice. It's like in, WWE. This is a match. You win or you have to retire. So they go on live TV and say, this guy has to win today or he will no longer
That's awesome.
be in PBH. Goes out, gets lit up. Just smacked, lit up. And Chris McSorley gets on at the end of the show and goes, he's done. He'll never put a PBH uniform on again. And it was like some of the best TV ever because they kept saying, they go 3:42 left in the career of this young man who's about to find out that he will never grace the floor of a pro beach hockey rink again. And they just totally milked on this guy. So to this day, everybody still rubs him the wrong way with it. They give him a hard time.
Oh, that's funny though.
Yeah.
Oh man. Hey,
I love that they did that. The whole drama of it to bring in the fans. I think that's
great. It was great TV. They said, Here, it's up to you. And of course, when you got guys like Chris Nelson shooting on you. I mean, Chris Nelson, man, I love Chris Nelson as a player. Proverbial power forward. He's a great defenseman. Got a cannon of a shot. Todd Johnson, played the U.S. junior team. Was out there teeing up 100-mile-an-hour. Yeah, you got to remember, PBH used a green ball that was frozen and full of a fluid. Yeah. So when you got hit by that ball, I mean,
it hurt.
You got hit by
it hurt. Yeah. Justin, you want to do the wheels and reels real quick, and then we'll get back into it?
Yeah, let's do it. We got a new highlight this week. Here we go.
Big things. Yeah. SK. Yeah. Let's go. Hey. Yeah. She said that new flow so striking, dear. Always on point like Viking gear. Always so tight like biker wear. You leveled up like a flight of stairs. Baggage drop has been quite a year. Them other boys had a quieter year. Them boys ain't let it get it like that. They play front, had a pilot steer. Hey, yo, no need for the metaphor. Yo, and I won't settle scores. I'm at war with a whack rap hit, no resolution. Like cameraman with a bad lens. And I'm way past this like verb with the ED. But I OD with the word so easily. Go DJ with my upbringing. So with two retire, you come king me. Hey, gotta brag a minute. Do my numbers like a mathematician or a statistician. You had a mission, but it just don't add up like that addition. Put a single out with those average lyrics. Now we looking past pacifism. Past cause you vision gotta get your wings like a caterpillar.
Every episode of No Offsides podcast is brought to you by Champion Hockey. Be a champion.
All right, what a highlight! The best part I think was the ref falling down.
Yeah,
we started off the video. So I've done it too. Oh man! So we were talking about skates before, right? And we were talking about the inverted wheels and everything like that. I remember them, but I also remember when Nike got into the game, and Nike came out with the Nike Rockers. Now those things were odd to skate on. So my brother played in tournaments and Narch tours or whatever, and so eventually their team got sponsored by Nike. And And so Nike was like, "Here, you're no longer your team. You're just Team Nike. Here's a blue helmet. Here's a white jersey. Here's a blue jersey with some basic design on it. No logo. Here's some gloves. Everyone gets 2 pairs of Nike rocker skates." And here's 2 sticks.
Wow.
Right? And it was just like, at the time, I had the same size feet as my brother, so I just stole those skates. And I just and so I was like, "Hey, you using your second pair of skates?" "No." "All right, see you."
Yeah.
Right? But it was interesting on, you have, all these different versions of skates. And now you have LaBeta coming out with this new chassis as well. Right.
So let's talk about LaBeta for a minute. I've been in partnership with LaBeta since '93. I want to just say the LaBeta family is amazing. Sad that Mr. LaBeta passed away a few years back, but his family has really kept the torch going. Their products are innovative. They always come up with something that's creative and it's a great product. I've been on LaBeta since '93. So what I love about them is that they always look at innovating and making their products better. And Rob Chornomud, who is director of brand for them and handles everything, and he's also in the U.S. Roller Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I can't say enough great things about LeBeta. LeBeta is one of the best products on the market. So for me, LeBeta is the wheel of choice. I'm not trying to advertise, but I'm just saying 93 to 2024, that's a long time that I've been using their product.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, you have what I like to see, right, is these companies that have been around for a while and they've stayed around and they've stuck with roller hockey.
Right.
And you have other companies that have came in, dabbled, and then they were just like, yeah, not for us. See you later.
Well, that was one of the problems that you had in the late 90s, early 2000s. You had companies like Nike who came in and said, here, take this. And you had other companies that threw just thousands of dollars of product at people. So all of a sudden you had the premier hockey players going to the franchises that were sponsored by these teams because everything was free. Yeah. And it really, I thought it hurt the sport because, you know, you'd have the Nike OC Blades, okay? All of a sudden, all these top kids are playing for the OC Blades, like you said, skates, sticks, they've got everything. And then you've got the Nike this or another different company. Some of the names I can't remember that were here, but I also remember another company was Flight Skates. They came out with flight skates. They were just throwing them out to let players use them for free and all that stuff. And whenever you give away product like that, you're not building any credibility. You're just giving away product. You have to have a product that is usable by the athletes where there's consistency and they feel they get growth, which is like you said, you see the companies come and go. Yeah. LeBeta has been here for years. Rink Rat has been here for years. Bauer, CCM, Mission, you've got Alkali, all these companies that have consistent products that, you know, are user-friendly and strong on the market.
Yeah, and, you know, bringing in all those names, I personally have to bring in Champion. Champion Hockey, you know, been around for only a couple years now, new, but I have to say that, you know, you look at all these companies that have lasted and all the new companies that have come in, you know, and I look at Champion Hockey and the murmur around is that it's one of the cleanest startups that a company has had in quite some time. Right. Wow. And so, you know, they've done it right. They started with, you know, 2 different kinds of wheels and they then drove the price down, you know, because I mean, they came in through, you know, when prices of everything started skyrocketing. Right. So they came out, you know, they had 2 sets of wheels, golden. They had a gold series, and I can't remember the blue one, but they had a yellow and a blue wheel, and one there was soft and extra soft. And so I think they're both part of the gold series, and I probably should know this. And so Champion's probably gonna just he's probably gonna text me and be like, "You don't even know your own product," because. And so, you know, they came out and they, you know, it was the price of it was a little high at first, but as they kept putting in the work, they lowered the price. And then they came out, they're like, hey, we're going to do sticks. And, you know, they have sticks that they sell now. And now they opened up to, they now have a new wheel that's about to hit the market. And then they also have now goalie sticks too. So they didn't like jump full in and just throw millions of dollars at it. And then they're like, oh, no one's do it. Yeah, and no one's buying our stuff. Right. And then they're like, oh, we're bankrupt.
That's how you have to do it. I like I said, I've been in the industry so many years. I've seen people who have tried to do it the right way. I've seen people who try to make a quick buck. They're not in the industry anymore. Yeah. I've seen people who have had their hearts in the right place, and maybe it just wasn't the right time for them, but they consistently believed in their product, and they made a comeback. So in the end, what it is consistency, and a product that people can rely on and count on is going to get you through the door. And that's the most important part. Here in Hawaii, we have a pro shop on our premises. We proudly carry LeBeta. We have Rink Rat. We do have some different kinds of wheels. We're Bauer, primarily Bauer CCM. We have Alkali. You know, we carry different brands because we find people like to have that kind of opportunity to select what they want. They don't want to be pushed into a brand. They want to go with what they're comfortable with. So one of the great things about our pro shop is we cater to everybody. So it's all inclusive with what we sell in our pro shop at KIHA.
That's awesome. Yeah. And, you know, variety is good because, you know, what works for one person doesn't work for someone else. Right. And so like, and I can say, you know, I've used LeBeta, and, you know, I've used a decent amount of their wheels. I've used Rink Rat, and and I'm not knocking Dual Bait at all, but there's one set of wheels that I found out that my weight does not support.
Okay.
Right? And I'm 220 pounds. So
well, just imagine how I feel.
And so, but like I could say, like, everyone was like, "How are they?" And I was like, "Well, they're good. They're grippy. They're fast." But I ripped out of 6 hubs in one tournament, right? And I was like,
Dang.
I'm just too heavy for them. I need a harder wheel, right? And so it's just not it just wasn't for me.
Right.
So I moved on. But I'm not going to go out there and just bash a company just because, hey, I'm too fat for a wheel.
Hey, I want to help you out, Dan. All right, it's the Trophy Series is the blue, the Gold Series is the yellow,
Yes,
and the brand new the Legacy Series.
yeah.
All right,
Legacy, I like that. Legacy.
Yeah.
And their Legacy Series, so their wheels are there because their Trophy and Gold Series are like harder wheels, and so they are very versatile. You can use them outdoor on asphalt, and I found that they last a long time. And the weight is lighter than like an outdoor wheel where they claim it's for asphalt.
Right.
But with those wheels, I just feel there's a lot of weight that comes to it, so they don't break down. But then their new Legacy is kind of like the clear. They're trying something different, and a softer wheel. So I look forward to kind of what Champion has coming forward, because he's always trying to innovate and try and progress as a company.
Yeah, it's great.
So, but yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I have a ref question.
There was one thing I wanted to bring up, and that was, we had those wildfires in Maui that affected everybody. One of the great things that our owner here at KIHA did was we were doing a cash prize for each one of our divisions. And the owner said, hey, how about we get the teams to buy into donating that cash prize to Maui,
Nice.
And they pick the charity that they want to do.
Beautiful.
So there's a charity called Maui Strong, and where they're helping people who are ousted. They lost their homes in the fire. And what they do is they're not spreading the money out in one lump sum. They're spreading it out over 3 years, so these people have a consistent income to fall back on. So with all of our leagues, we raised $3,000 that we donated to Maui Strong, and then we raised another $500 that got donated to the Pet Association for all the animals that were displaced and lost their homes. Their owners passed away. They needed care and help. So one of the great things that we did at KIHA was we took the initiative to, instead of having a financial reward for our teams, we took that and put it towards something to help everybody on the island of Maui.
That's awesome. I'm happy to hear that. Justin, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Something that me and Doug were talking about was Disney and the Angels.
Oh, I'll tell you a great Angel story. I was with the Angels for 3 years. 2018, I was named the Employee of the Year. My heart dropped, my jaw dropped. I didn't expect it. I was basically working the Angels locker room for games. So I was always there with the players, always talking to the players, getting to know the guys. And one player on the Angels, who I will not name, he had a beautiful truck that was worth a lot, probably more than all three of us if we combined what we make a year. Anyway, he was on the road, and his truck needed to go to the dealership for some repair work. Well, his wife did not want to drive the truck. She was scared to because it was his baby. So I was there. His wife shows up, and all of a sudden I get asked, will you drive the truck to the dealership? And she'll follow you, and then she'll bring you back to the stadium. And I'm like, first of all, obviously this player is the upper echelon in the league. So I drive the truck to the dealership, get in the car, and she's going to bring me back to the stadium. She goes, are you hungry? You want something to eat? I'm like, no, because I was just, in the presence of greatness. It's just because the whole thing was just, So she brings me back to the stadium, drops me off. Husband comes back from the road trip. I'm working, comes up to me, looks me in the eye, shakes my hand. thanks me for what I did and for making his wife feel more comfortable, hands me an envelope. Can't tell you what was in the envelope, just showing his appreciation for what I did. And 3 months later, all of a sudden I find out I'm the employee of the year for the Angels. They had a ceremony on the field and everything. And then I find out that this player petitioned everybody to vote. It's a vote. You have to vote. So he petitioned everybody to vote for me based on just the single act of kindness I did for he and his wife. And I was just completely blown away by the whole thing. So with the Angels, I had a great time. Shohei Ohtani was there. When he got hurt, I got to bring him into the field every day so he could do his workouts. Got to know him, got to talk to him. Gave him a nickname, Showzilla, which he laughed when I first called him Showzilla. It was pretty funny. He always have his interpreter with him. So, I would have to talk to his interpreter, but just great memories of the Angels, and getting Employee of the Year. But Disney is where I was before Mr. Pentecost brought me out here to Hawaii. I was with Disney for 6 years. I was a teacher or facilitator at Disney University. I was a security supervisor, and I also taught all the new security officers that came in. One of the greatest things I enjoyed was Disney University because you're teaching new cast members about the rich history of Disney. And as you know, they owned the Anaheim Ducks and the Angels for a short time. So one of the great things for me was doing all of that. But while I was at Disney was when I got the phone call from Mr. Pentecost saying, hey, I've got a position out here in Hawaii. Would you at all be interested? And that's when talks began, and I made the big cross-country move to Hawaii.
Had you wanted to live in Hawaii before that?
Well, I mean, I'd vacationed here. I'd gone to Maui. I've been to Oahu. I mean, to me, I thought of the word paradise. And when he contacted me, he originally talked to me back in 2010 when he was building the rink. But it just wasn't meant to be then because I was so busy with so many other things. So when he came back to me and said, hey, I'd really like to see if I can bring you out here, I said, okay, let's talk. And being a realist, okay, because these are the times that we live in, and these are the things that we deal with. I said, look, I'm going to come in, and when I come in, some people may not like the way I do things because I'm going to probably see things that need to be fixed. He goes, do what you have to do to make things work. Fix it. Just always talk to me. Tell me what you're going to do. Make sure I'm apprised, and then we'll talk about it together and we'll move forward. So when I first got there, he came to me and said, look, I don't want to do these certain things anymore. Can you change it? I said, sure, I'll change it. And then, unfortunately, people don't understand sometimes change is for the good. And this is his business. He has a right to run his business the way he wants, and his heart has always been in the right place because he's made it about the hockey players. He wants to see the hockey players do well. And sometimes people forget that he's the one paying the bills and he's the one putting the money out for all this. So you can't get upset with somebody when they're trying to do things differently because they want to look at things from a different perspective. And I think that was one of the hardest adjustments for me, was that people felt entitled to what they were doing in the rink and not looking at it as a business. They thought it was theirs. And no, it's his business. We have to do things for the good of everybody, not just a little group of people, but for everybody.
I hear you. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always for the future, right? And so, setting up goals and trying to do your best to achieve them is probably the best thing to do, is what I've seen, especially being on a nonprofit, right? And, and also just kind of being vocal about your goals too. So,
absolutely. It's very hard. Whenever you're in charge, you've got people who support you, and then you've got your group that doesn't support you. And unfortunately, when that group becomes too loud and they're causing too many disruptions, then I'm sorry, you know what? There's other places. I mean, I'm sorry, but it's time to move on. And you just can't run a business when you have people walking into your house complaining about the way things are. So what do? You keep your mouth shut. You don't go on social media. You don't complain. You just look at building for the future. That's the only way to do it.
Yeah, and I mean,
good point.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, regardless of what you do, you're not going to please everyone, right? And so you're always going to have, whether depending on it all depends on your actions, right? And so if they're reasonable actions, there will be the smaller amount of people that are not going to enjoy, what you're doing. But if you are physically running a business into the ground, yeah, obviously then you deserve, probably what the board, what the people are saying, right? But if your goal is strictly kind of to improve it and to advance it, then people just kind of have to accept it, right?
And Dan, what you're saying, I hear loud and clear, but you have to remember perception is a big part of how this works.
Oh, I understand that. Yeah.
Your perception, Justin's perception could be totally different from mine. You may see me do something and not understand why I've done it, and you have your perception. What it is it's about results. It's about rebuilding. And since we've been in a rebuilding mode, we've grown our numbers with our youth program alone, just all new kids coming in. So that's what it's all about. You build and you start from the ground and work your way up. That's it.
Yeah, we see that in our own league too, where, sometimes people don't feel things are fair, but you can't make it fair for everyone unless you just have a kind of a strict rule and you just adhere to it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like...
can I make a hard left?
Sure, go for it.
All right, because I wanted to talk about this. I heard from a little birdie that you are in a KISS cover band.
Oh, my God. That's totally unfair.
Is it? I think it's awesome.
All right. So anyway, yeah, I played Gene Simmons. I was in a band for 2 years. I'm not going to give you the name of the band.
Oh, come on.
Darren Goodwin at Narch used to rib me about it all the time. And one night I did a show in Huntington Beach, California. In the audience was Michael Anthony from Van Halen. And after the show, he came and found me, took a photo with me, and told me he thought I was one of the best Gene Simmons impersonators he'd ever seen.
That's awesome.
Yep.
What was unfair about that? I think that's awesome.
I keep that under my hat. The story that I told Jake Kopitsky was we were playing a club where they wouldn't allow me to breathe fire because the ceiling was too low. So when we did the song Firehouse, I had to walk outside into the parking lot, and they handed me a torch. And because I was using a wireless rig, I was able to still do what I had to do on the bass. But I blew the flame out in the parking lot, and then they put the fire out, and I walked back into the bar. So that was like one of those awesome spinal tap moments that there are photos of me actually around playing Gene Simmons breathing fire. I don't know if they've surfaced.
Oh, that's awesome.
But, yeah.
Oh, come on. You got to give us the band name.
Nope.
Oh.
Nope. I don't do that anymore. But as you saw, I do have a few guitars that I jangle on. So.
Yeah. What other things do you do besides ref, play hockey, run the leagues? You play guitar, obviously. What else you like to do?
Yeah, I mean, we live here. We live in a beautiful community. We're about 5 minutes away from Disney Aulani. There's 4 lagoons out here. And my partner, my girlfriend of 5 years, Tammy, got me a bicycle. So she's been getting me to pedal my bike and go for bike rides. And obviously, it's tough because I work 6 days a week. So a lot of the energy is being put into KIHA and growing the program and really making us, where we are today with our learn to play and our learn to play hockey and our learn to skate. Like I said, we have 30 kids. We went from nothing to 30 kids, which is phenomenal as far as Hawaii goes, because you remember there's a limited amount of resources out here. So we're exposing a lot of new kids to the game of hockey, and we're doing it the right way. And one of the greatest things in the world is we have Jordan Nohai Barakar, who's an OC Blade. He's my assistant. When Richard hired me, I said, look, I'm 58, 59 years old. Nobody wants to see an old guy like me, decrepit guy, get out on the rink with a pair of skates on, telling kids, hey, let's go do a few laps, because I can't back up what I'm teaching now because of my age and everything else. I need a young kid to go 100 miles an hour and get on the rink and press the kids. The kids will see him and say, hey, I want to be just like Jordan one day. So I asked Richard to let me have Jordan as my assistant, and he graciously did. So just to tell you guys how good Jordan is, he's from Hawaii. Jordan at Narch and State Wars in the 16 and under division won the fastest skater at both tournaments. Now, Etan Shavera was out here a couple weeks ago. They had a race. We clocked them with 3 sets of watches. Jordan came in at 14.76. Etan came in at 14.78. Jordan beat Etan. And Etan Shavera, that boy can skate. Yeah. We all know that.
So, oh, man.
Yeah.
And this is a 16-year-old, you said?
He's now 17. He's actually at Winter Nationals right now. He's playing for the OC Blades.
That's awesome.
Very cool. Tell him to get on the show.
Hey, if you guys want to have him, I'd love to have you have him, man. He's got a great perspective. I'm going to tell you, his future's gold. His brother, Jaden, is playing for Etan Shavera's Dangle Dojo. He played at Arizona State University, his brother, Jaden. So, I mean, the family's very, very hockey rich in tradition.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah, I always like to hear some good hockey stories about young kids just kind of doing good things and, having their head on their shoulders and just kind of doing what needs to be done and putting in the work.
Well, the reason I love Jordan so much was he was playing in the adult league and he lost the game and he made a mistake during the game and he got down and so hard on himself for making the mistake. I'm like, I love this kid. He's competitive. He wants to win. He's got the desire. He's got the heart of a lion. This is the kind of kid I want around me because he's only going to make people get better. And he doesn't disappoint. I'm telling you, you're going to hear a lot more from him and his brother. They're both very talented hockey players.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I've kind of run out of questions here. I mean, we've talked about a wide variety of things today, and it's been awesome because, like I said you could talk for days. Loved all the stories.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, it's because I am 59. My bladder doesn't work as well. So believe me, I don't know if you guys noticed, I've been doing the grimace a little bit. So, well, if you guys say goodbye, my feelings won't be hurt at all.
Well, we'd like to thank our sponsor, Champion Hockey. We'd like to thank all of our watchers. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave comments. We're here every Thursday. Our lineup is pretty packed. We're full for the next month and a half. We're still filling up March and April. So make sure you set us on subscribe so that you get when we're coming on, right? Follow us on Instagram at No Offsides. So make sure you check out the description below. And Doug, thank you for being on today.
Dan and Justin, thank you for letting me talk so much. I mean, you guys really do. And I just want to, if anybody wants to check us out, it's KIHawaii.com, KIHawaii.com. You can check out all about our hockey program and everything we do.
Awesome.
We got you in the description.
Yeah, we got you in the description. Everyone check out the description. Love what you're doing. We love when people are growing the sport. So, if you're forechecking, don't let up because there's no offsides in roller hockey. So, hey, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us, Doug. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Doug.
Thank
See
you.
ya.
No offside.
Every episode of No Offsides podcast is brought to you by Champion Hockey. Be a champion. This week's episode is brought to you by the Asheville Hockey League. The mission of the Asheville Hockey League is to provide community space for inline hockey in Western North Carolina, empowering youth and adults of all backgrounds through competition, mentorship, skills development, camaraderie, and the love of the sport. This episode is also brought to you by US Roller Cup. Join a revolution in roller. The U.S. Roller Cup is a premier roller hockey tournament series in the United States. Their passion for the sport drives them to create an unparalleled experience for players, fans, and coaches alike. With a focus on promoting roller hockey at all levels, from youth to professional, we are committed to growing the game and fostering a sense of community within the roller hockey world. USRC seeks to spread the love for roller hockey across the nation, connecting players and fans from every corner of the United States. Go to usrollercup.com to register for this year's Winter Nationals, held at SGAA in Snellville, Georgia. The tournament is scheduled from February 16th to the 18th, promising an exciting weekend of competition, with pro prizes up to $9,000 and divisions from 10U all the way up to men's and women's pro. Get your spot today. US Roller Cup. Roller hockey is more than just a sport. It's a way of life.